Spring 2027, that is the date that millions of children in the UK will be forced off social media after the government there announced that it would ban the under-16s from accessing a range of platforms. Apps including TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram and YouTube will become inaccessible for children. The companies which own these social media sites warned that a blanket ban would move children into a more unsafe online environment. Well, in a moment we will speak to an Irish doctor who advised the British government on this. First, this young teen in Lancashire in England spoke to Fiona Lambden of the BBC.
What was your screen time over the weekend?
9 hours.
9 hours. So suddenly you're going to have a lot more time to fill. And what will you do?
Stare at a wall.
Stare at a wall. Professor Matthew Sadlier is a consultant psychiatrist who was one of a number of medics who lobbied the British government for a ban on social media, and he's with us this morning. You're very welcome indeed.
Thank you.
Has it gone as far as you wanted?
I think it has gone as far as we wanted, and I mean, to have named a number of platforms, but more interestingly what they're also looking for is to ban a number of features such as stranger contact on real-time streaming and some of the more addictive features like infinite scroll and these factors.
Are they going to ban the doom scrolling?
So they're going to, that's certainly within the proposal. Obviously the legislation will have to be worked out and it'll have to bounce around the parliaments and all the rest.
And what about the algorithms?
Well, that's the other bit that's also going to be included, which means that somebody else, if they set up a platform in the morning and they have these features, it won't be allowed, rather than just naming a number of platforms and then sure you're opening the gate for another company to come out and go, I'm going to call a platform whatever, and it'll have those features in it.
Why did you want it banned for under-16s? Are there definitive studies to show the dangers that they pose to children and teens?
So it's like all public health measures, okay? There's enough robust evidence to show there's a significant health effect. So if we take smoking, for example, smoking a cigarette increases your chance of lung cancer by about a scale of about 40 times. But that does not mean that everybody who smokes gets lung cancer. And all of us know somebody who smoked 20 a day for 80 years and went to their grave without any
and who never
cancer
smoked
or problems.
anything.
And then we've the other case on the other side. So it is about protecting that percentage of the people who get badly affected. And with social, and this is one of the problems with some of the studies, that we get secondary data of wellness studies of the population, often done by people who aren't doctors, who aren't experts in public health, who say, well, we did a survey of 1,000 children and the average score of wellness was only minorly down to social media, so it doesn't cause an effect.
But what are the clinical what are the clinical data that you've seen?
So the clinical data is that has increased the admissions for eating disorders among adolescent girls in England by over 600%. It has increased presentations of self-harm among adolescents by a number of something comparable to that. What we are seeing is a mental health crisis where 25% of adolescents are getting a diagnosis of some anxiety or depressive type disorder.
And is that linked to social media?
Well, it has to be linked to something, because those figures are all an increase since 2012, and something was introduced into society at that time to change that. And people who argue things like housing crisis and that, Ireland when I was 12 had an unemployment rate of 16%. We had a bigger housing crisis in the 80s than we did now. The reason it wasn't as public was that everybody emigrated to solve the crisis. So these countries, we've had worse economic situations, we've had worse social conditions than we've had before, and we didn't have this level of diagnosis.
But we weren't measuring it back then, though.
Well, we always had mental health services. We always had, and in fact, actually, in 1960, Ireland had 23,000 psychiatry beds. We only have 3,000 now. So we actually had a much bigger psychiatric service in the past than we do now.
Okay, so you're convinced of the dangers.
Among that younger age group, a significant amount of children are getting significantly affected. You look at the PISA scores in education are going backwards. For the first time, we've a generation who are less cognitively flexible, who have lower IQs than the previous generation. Now, there is something doing that. And spending, and if you look at the reports, one of the best reports is the Ofcom report in the UK, and it will show that 18 to 24 year olds, they don't go under 18 unfortunately, are spending 5.5 hours scrolling social media on average a day. Now that is added up over 25 years of that person's life. Lung cancer will take maybe 10 to 15 years off your life, and they're the 10 to 15 years at the end. This is taking hours and hours of youth, of activity, of social engagement off a huge percentage of the public.
But I wonder, it's not a straightforward good-bad argument, many would argue, because one of the most challenging things right now is to differentiate the internet. And some of these platforms have a mix. Some is awful stuff that you would not want your child anywhere near. Not even adults, you would want them anywhere near it. But there's some really good stuff on them as well, with education, socialisation. How do you balance it?
You balance that by moving them off platforms that have algorithmic content control, that have addictive features, and you move them on to the better part of the internet. Anybody in the morning can set up a website.
Can you do that with this ban? If YouTube, for example, is on this list to be banned for under 16s. But
YouTube is not the only video
educational
streaming
stuff.
Yes, but you could set up an education video website and have videos on it, and people can search it on Google. Like, there's hundreds of millions of websites, but the world only uses 4 of them. One of the other issues about this is to open up the rest of the internet. You have the RTE website, you have the BBC website, you have the Irish Times website, you have all these very trusted legacy media sites that have really good websites with lots of video content on it. There's lots of educational content on the RTE website that people can access through that has been curated, that has been viewed. You don't have to keep going on to YouTube. And one of the things that Google, Meta, Amazon, all the big companies do is they try to pretend that they are the internet, and that if we ban people accessing Instagram, well, then they're back to the Stone Age. They will never access any computer again. Nobody is banning children from accessing the internet. There's loads of really good stuff, and the point I would always point out is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a really good example of how the internet can be a really good place. It's not perfect, but it is really good.
I have another question for you, because many will wonder, how do you actually prevent this in the real world? Because children are clever, teenagers are clever, they have their ways, and we've seen in Australia 61% of under 16s there still have access to social media because they download VPNs which pretend they're in another country. Yes,
but we've all seen in Australia that 67% of parents would say they've seen a behavioural improvement in their children. Children are doing more offline socialisation, and that there's a reduce in the behavioural problems in schools. So the Australian ban has worked. There's a lot of propaganda being perpetrated by some of the largest corporations. VPNs are an issue, but like, you are right, children are clever. But Meta is a lot cleverer than they are. Okay. And Meta should have the responsibility of preventing this happen. And as Annika Wells, the Communication Minister for Australia, says, those companies are not doing enough. And they have the technology. Okay. They are the cleverest people in the room.
Thank you very much. Professor Matthew Sadlier, consultant psychiatrist.